All right, thanks, Rick, and thanks to the forum for having me. I'm really here today to tell you three things. One, students actually can have a great teacher in every classroom. Two, our state can offer vastly better career opportunities and pay for teachers. Even in tough budgets, schools should be able to pay teachers 20 to 100% above what they're paying them now. And three, just this state's economy alone would benefit by billions of dollars if we did those first two things. Now, I know it's easy to get cynical about this. How many times have we heard people say a great teacher in every classroom? You know, deep down, most people don't really think that's possible. And most people also understand schools can't do this by themselves. We need to fight the impact of poverty from before kids are born all the way through their lives, not just rely on schools to do everything. But what I want to talk about today is the 15,000 hours that most kids spend in K-12 education. So how's that going? Well, at first glance, maybe it's not so bad. We saw a huge jump between 1975 and 2009 in the percentage of 24-year-olds with a college degree. But that's just among rich kids. What about poor kids in this country? Over the same period, they went from 7% all the way to 8%. And that's just unacceptable. That's squandering the lives and the potential of tens of millions of students every single year. And it's particularly tragic because we know there are schools across America where 100% of poor kids go on to college. There are schools, not very many of them, that achieve that. And we know there are teachers in classrooms across North Carolina and across America that show what's possible. And so it's particularly tragic. Here's a true story for you. I know a girl in North Carolina. She grew up in a small town in western North Carolina, born to a single mother. She knew other families didn't struggle like hers did. Not other kids didn't come home often and find the electricity shut off in their house. She faced the odds on this chart, but she didn't give up because school was a refuge for her. Her teachers believed in her, and because of those teachers who believed in her and taught her, she defied these odds. She became one of the 8% to go on to college and finish. And she's done a lot more than that. I'm going to come back to her later. But she defied the odds, and a lot of kids do it, but not nearly enough do so. And so my question is, why shouldn't every student have that kind of teacher every single year? Now, it might seem like a crazy goal in the past, but the future is different. As Rick said, if we rethink things, the future can be very different. We can meet that goal if we don't give up. Now, this is why it's so important not to, because excellent teachers can change students' lives forever. Think of two students who both start out first grade 2 years behind grade level, which is the case with too many students today. If one of those students had excellent teachers all the way through middle school in a subject like math, teachers that are as good as the very top quarter of teachers in the state or the country, we know those teachers lead students to make gains of 1.5 years over a year's time in the core academic subjects. If a student had teachers like that, after 8th grade, he wouldn't be behind anymore. He would be 2 years ahead of grade level. If another student had solid teachers, made a year worth of growth every year over that period of time, at the end of 8th grade, she'd still be 2 years behind. And she'd be 4 years behind her peer on this chart. And so excellent teachers are just that important for our kids' future. Now, am I saying that math and reading scores are the only way to measure how kids are doing and the only way to measure how teachers are doing? Of course not. We need much better measures of higher order thinking skills, of the competencies that students need to succeed and to use their knowledge. But we know academic gains are really important for students' lives, and we also know that teachers vary enormously in how effectively they raise children's academic fortunes. And it's not just about closing achievement gaps, like I just talked about. It's also advanced kids benefit from having excellent teachers, too. Our advanced students are learning at the level that students in the middle are learning in some high-performing nations. And they could leap ahead to international standards, too, if they had excellent teaching year after year. But the reality is that only about 25%, a quarter of our classrooms, have teachers that deliver that kind of learning consistently. Now, does this slide make you uncomfortable? This slide makes me a little uncomfortable. This slide makes most people I talk to uncomfortable. But it's just math. It's just facts. And I think the sooner we acknowledge that academic gains are important to students' lives, the sooner we acknowledge that teachers vary enormously currently in their ability to achieve those gains, the sooner we can get on to talking about how could things be different for students and for teachers. And I think that discussion needs to start by thinking, how can we think really differently about the teaching profession than we've been thinking about it over the last 40 years? Because look at this. Between 1970 and 2010, per pupil expenditures on education went up 146% in real terms. Now, what do you think happened during that same time period with teacher pay? Over that time period, teacher pay per hour stayed flat. Teacher work hours went up by 11%, teacher pay went up by 11%, teacher pay per hour stayed flat during that period. And the job got harder. The job got more difficult because we ask teachers now to meet individual needs in very diverse classrooms. We look for results now, and not just on the basics, but higher order thinking. And at the same time, other careers, as Rick mentioned, started offering pay and career opportunities that vastly exceed what we have in teaching. Teachers could find other places to go work where they could earn more and have more opportunities to advance by far. And unlike those other professions, teaching has remained largely a solo practice. Schools put teachers into classrooms alone and expect them to get better all by themselves. Great teachers can't help their peers succeed. Great teachers can't help their peers get better over time. Teachers who want to have a bigger impact have to leave the classroom. And too many of them leave public education altogether and jump into those careers where their excellence is rewarded. And so the question is, can this be different? Can we offer something that's better for everyone? A teaching career that has higher pay, more opportunities for advancement, on-the-job development, and also empowerment of teachers? And can we offer something better for students? And I think the answer is we can, but not if we leave schools running the way they run now. Not if we leave schools running the way they run now. So what does that mean? It means we need new school models, models that have new roles for teachers, that have new schedules for students and teachers, and that use technology that's child appropriate in ways that let excellent teachers and their teams reach all students, not just a fraction. These models are what are the key to allowing schools to put an excellent teacher in charge of every classroom, every single classroom, not just a few classrooms within their school. And my team at Public Impact that's worked on developing these models calls this an opportunity culture, which you heard a little bit about in the video about Project Lift. Now, these models are designed to extend the reach of great teachers to more students directly by teaching more of them or by leading teams. And the teachers on those teams can then focus on what they do best and have the chance to learn alongside their most outstanding peers to improve learning over time. And so what's happening in schools in North Carolina and across America is that teams of teachers are coming together and thinking about how can we re-envision our school using models like the ones I'm about to describe. So one of them is called multi-classroom leadership. In this model, teacher leaders lead teams of other teachers. They continue to teach, and they also have the chance to help their peers succeed within a team environment. They're selected based on their leadership capability, as well as their teaching prowess. Team teachers can focus on their strengths, do what they do best. New paraprofessionals added to these teams can save teachers time and give the teachers time within the day to collaborate and plan together. One example of a multi-classroom leader is Kristen Cubbage, who's in Charlotte, Mecklenburg Schools. She works for Ashley Park School. She teaches a group of students every day, but she spends most of her time working with 4 other teachers to help them improve their craft every day. And so she's an elementary school teacher, but because of leading a team, she's able to reach 165 students every day rather than just a single classroom's worth. And she can earn more as well. In Charlotte, multi-classroom leaders can earn $16,000 to $23,000 above the pay scale for taking on this added responsibility. And with this model, schools really can place an excellent teacher in charge of every single classroom in the school. Another model is called specialization. This is a model where elementary teachers focus on the subject or subject pair that they teach best, math and science, for example. The best math teacher in a grade level can teach all the students in the grade level instead of a single classroom, without increasing class sizes and without increasing the instructional time for those students. If it's scheduled well, time can be created in the day for this teacher to meet with their other peers and work together and collaborate. And specialists can earn 20% or more above the pay scale within existing budgets. So that's specialization. Another one is what we call a time technology swap. This is the idea of students spending a portion of the day learning digitally, perhaps just an hour a day at a time for elementary school children, for example. What that does is let teachers reach more students without increasing class sizes and without reducing the amount of higher order instructional time they have with students. Again, scheduling can make it possible for the teachers in this model to meet and plan together during the day with the help of the paraprofessionals that oversee the technology work, and they can be paid 20% or more above the standard salary schedule. Now, the digital time that kids have doesn't have to be all in front of screens. They can spend time doing offline skill practice, project work, but the idea is to save teachers time so they can reach more students and also work together and collaborate. Romain Bertrand is another teacher in Charlotte. He's also a multi-classroom leader. He and his team are using this kind of blended learning to save themselves time to reach more students successfully. And last year, starting in January, he took responsibility for the school's whole math department and took them from the bottom of the district growth rankings to near the top in math using these approaches. That's time technology swap. And then finally is the idea of remotely located teaching. This is the idea of a great teacher who's down the hall or even across the state using two-way video and other kinds of technology to reach students and teach students wherever they live. In this day and age, students ought to have access to great teachers no matter where they happen to live. That's remote teaching. Now, as the teams of teachers and principals at schools put together these ideas into a model for their school, these are the principles that they're working towards: reaching more students with great teachers, paying teachers more for reach, within existing budgets, not using temporary grants, but something they can sustain, providing planning and development time at school, and matching the authority and accountability of teachers to the roles that they have. If schools meet these principles, here's what can happen. Pay can go up dramatically for teachers. That in turn makes schools more attractive to teachers, both the ones that are there already and to applicants. And then over time, the school can become much more selective about who teaches at that school because of that flow of excited applicants into the school. That's the promise of the opportunity culture principles. Now, one thing I've mentioned several times is pay. These models enable teachers to earn more for taking on those additional roles within schools. And that can be on top of whatever existing pay schedule exists. Now, why is this so important? I'm sure we've all heard people say, pay doesn't matter to teachers. And I'm sure those of you who are teachers in the audience didn't come into teaching because of the pay. But pay does matter, and here's why I'm so confident about that. First, reams of research across a lot of industries make clear that pay has a huge difference, makes a huge difference in who enters a profession and who stays. Now, that doesn't mean lots of great people aren't coming into teaching with the current pay, but it means altruism only gets you so far as a recruiting tool. So research makes that clear. Research also tells us that when people tell surveyors answers to questions, they often say, pay doesn't matter to me. But when you follow people's behavior, pay does affect people's decisions profoundly. And I think our own experience really bears out that research, right? Our own experience sitting here listening to the panel this morning bears that experience out. We all know people who have decided not to become a teacher, in part because of pay. We all know people who've left teaching when it came time to support a growing family. We all know people now in North Carolina considering leaving the state and going somewhere else because they reward teachers better. And so pay does matter for teachers. And finally, teachers, you just deserve to earn more. And teachers in the schools that we're working with are sitting down and deciding how to reallocate funds to put more of their school's existing dollars into teachers' pockets where it belongs. School teams have begun doing this in Charlotte last year, but already school teams in district schools in 4 states this spring will be doing the same thing, making decisions about how to reallocate funds to put more dollars into teachers' pockets. Now, these models aren't the total solution to North Carolina's pay issues. A comprehensive policy also just needs to include a general raise for teachers across the board. It also needs to include paying even more to early career teachers. North Carolina teachers that are highly effective should be able to skip steps on the salary schedule so they can get to the top faster. But the state could also incentivize districts to put as much of their existing dollars as they can into teacher pay. And you saw on my earlier slide, that's not what schools have been doing over the last 40 years. They've been paying for everything else. Now, pay isn't the only thing that these models do. They also create career opportunities for teachers to continue to teach while having the chance to advance and help their peers succeed. And, as I've mentioned, they provide time during the day for collaboration, planning, and on-the-job learning. So there's lots of potential benefits in these models for teachers. Charlotte, North Carolina was the first opportunity culture site. And it's recently announced that it's going to be the first district to try to take these models and spread them across the city. We're really awed by the leadership that Superintendent Heath Morrison is bringing to make that happen, and also the generosity of the Belk Foundation that's helping to pay for the transition costs. But I'll tell you, there's really just one reason why we started this work in Charlotte, and that reason is Denise Watts, who many of you saw on the video before, the director of Project Lift. By the time we came to Denise, we had talked to something like 50 other districts. And Charlotte didn't really fit our criteria because it was between superintendents. But Denise, we knew, had been a very successful turnaround leader herself. And when she told us, I'm going to help these kids or I will die trying, we believed her. And we believed her, you see, because Denise is that girl that I started talking in my presentation with. She's the one who beat those odds on my first slide, made it through college and beyond. And as I said before, the benefit didn't stop with that degree and the benefits that Denise herself has accrued from that. Now, because of Denise's leadership, thousands of students every year in Charlotte have a better shot. And it all started with the teachers she had when she was a child. Now it's being paid forward by Denise. So how many more Denises are there in our schools? How many more of the millions of kids in our nation's schools could be stars in their field, could be leaders among leaders? I think we know it's a lot. So when I think about this, I don't think there's any reason why North Carolina can't put a great teacher in charge of every single classroom. I don't think there's any reason why North Carolina can't offer career opportunities to teachers that pay. And I know from my team running the numbers that if we did those things, the benefit to North Carolina's economy would be in the billions of dollars. So school board members, district leaders, legislators, governors, it's really time to give students what they need, and it's time to give teachers what they deserve. Thanks.